Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is showing up. Sometimes that's the biggest hurdle to our growth and transformation, is just being able to conquer the fear and resistance to just show up. So we're going to talk about that today, what that looks like. Good morning, Rosalind. Rosalind says TGIF. It's Friday, and I guess we get to celebrate that. Why not? We get to, funny that we have these manufactured celebrations, but, going into the weekend, it's an interesting break in our routines, right? And maybe one of the things we think about over the weekend is rest or play or who knows what. But anyway, we're that's a conversation for another day, perhaps. We're going to talk about showing up, but before we do that, let's show up to release any kind of tension. So Rosalind says, so looking forward to rest. I gotcha, Rosalind. I gotcha. I was looking forward to rest too, and then I realized my weekend's kind of scheduled, and my family is celebrating my mother's 92nd birthday. How about that? She's going to be 92 on, I think, Tuesday. I should check the date, but I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday, the 18th, whatever day that is. So, yep, Tuesday, she's going to be 92. How about that? She's still driving. She's still going to the grocery store herself, and with me too sometimes, but she's going to doctor's appointments herself. So Rosalind says, happiest birthday celebration, right? 92. And so we're going to have three generations there to celebrate, intimate family, and just going out to dinner together. And so pretty amazing. Anyway, so no rest for me this weekend, really. Anyway, I get wanting to looking forward to the weekend to be able to rest and recharge as my weeks have been filling up pretty intensely these days. Anyway, we are going to talk today about showing up, but before we do that, let's take a couple minutes and get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, negativity, stress, and now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of energy and light out from your heart into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub those hands together and really presence yourself to the sensations. Feel that, like breathe in through your hands as you're rubbing them together. Breathe out through your hands. And when you stop, feel the tickling and the tingling, and allow all of those sensations to bring you more deeply into the experience of your body, which we take for granted. It's this remarkable physical form through which we experience all of life. So let's have some gratitude for our physicalness and recognition that, wow, that we have this amazing interface between us and lived experience. Pretty remarkable. And something we take for granted pretty much all the time, right? So anyway, showing up, what's showing up? This came up in a couple conversations this week with folks who were experiencing lots of resistance within themselves, really kind of being deep in the feelings. When we're deep in shame and judgment and guilt and fear and resignation, it makes it really hard to show up in our lives for more, to even when we know that there's an opportunity for transformation. Sometimes it's just that we'd rather go hide under a rock, or we'd rather go find a way to avoid the circumstances. And so showing up in my mind is rising to an occasion, rising to an invitation for elevation, right? We don't necessarily see it that way. We often see it like a challenge, or, like facing, if I've done if I haven't fulfilled on a promise, for instance, or if there's friction and I know a situation's going to be uncomfortable, what does it mean to show up? What's the opportunity in that moment to elevate ourselves, our being, our awareness, our contribution? What does it mean to step up and show up? And it's in those moments of existential challenge, in those moments of challenge, that the greatest potential to show up presents itself. So last night on Sustainability Now movie night, we aired a conversation between this amazing young activist named Clover Hogan and a climate psychologist named Carolyn Hickman. And it was a really, really powerful conversation talking about eco-anxiety. And Rosalind says, stepping forward looks like taking on a role. You know what, Rosalind, I think you peeked under the hood there, and I think that that's true. Taking on a role. We may not define that role. Maybe the role is as a champion, a connector, a presence. So let me just flesh this out with this conversation about eco-anxiety. Stepping up, like we have this circumstance globally in the world that is persistent and pervasive, and it's ever present, and it's something that we typically ignore. We pretend it doesn't exist, or we're in denial around it, because it's really overwhelming. It's really, we don't have any precedent for how to deal with something like this emotionally, let alone practically, right? With the climate crisis and with the mass extinction of species and the environment and the political environment and all kinds of things, all this confluence of all these different circumstances, we really don't have any kind of precedent for how to be with it. And, good morning, Kimberly. It's been a little while. Great having you back with us. Welcome. And for anybody else who's writing comments and I'm not responding, just know that it's because I don't see your comments. So If you want to engage with us in this conversation, which you are warmly invited to do, please go to the Enlightened World Network Facebook page or YouTube channel and put your comments in there, and then we can engage. Anyway, so the thing about stepping up is maybe stepping into a willingness to acknowledge whatever is there, stepping into a role of communication, maybe, sometimes stepping up is being an advocate. Stepping up, standing up is speaking out sometimes, right? So what I saw in this conversation, this eco-anxiety conversation, is that there's a level of recognition emerging to say, hey, this is a global mental health and emotional health challenge, because we are facing what we're facing. And what does it look like to be addressing it straight on? What does it look like to step up into recognition? It may be that it means taking on a role that we wouldn't have otherwise taken. When we recognize an urgency, when we recognize a call, stepping up is stepping into that calling. When our higher self, our deeper soul is calling out for our attention and our engagement, stepping up is taking the appropriate action, right? Maybe stepping up is calling yourself into a new level of commitment. So this is on my mind because I started last week. I'm wrestling with the potential to step up to a new level of engagement and commitment and expression in elevating consciousness, elevating awareness, elevating our frequency. So what does that look like? Stepping up and stepping in. Rosalind says, not being on the sidelines, as if the outcome can be different if we sat this one out. Yeah. So not being on the sidelines. What's it like to be in the game? Be in the game. It doesn't have to look a particular way. It's particular to who you are. So Kimberly says, I want to share with you, my auntie passed away Sunday holding my hand. I'm stepping up in my life today. Kimberly, I'm so sorry for your loss. And what a beautiful gift to be so present, to step up for your auntie and be there with her. And how beautiful that you are using that love and connection to step more deeply into your life. And what does that look like? What does it look like for us to step up and step into actively engaging with our lives? Awareness, what does it look like? We start out these mornings with our breathing and our rubbing our hands together and getting present into our bodies. That's also stepping up to be here. A lot of us find being here very painful at times, and it's easier to fall into avoidance and denial than it is to step up and engage. And Kimberly says being fully present and aware. Yeah, that can be really challenging because there's so much to absorb and respond to and integrate. There's so much, and it can be very overwhelming. And so the self-preservation tendency can be to just want to crawl into a hole and pretend that the whole world doesn't exist. And there are times when we get to just do that so that we can recharge and revitalize. That also is stepping up to what's called for. And this week, I had a couple situations with clients where they were feeling very, very, very confronted and overwhelmed. And I got the privilege of holding the space for them, of stepping up the level of commitment, by saying, okay, I just want you to know you don't get out of this so easy. I'm here for you. I'm a stand for you. I'm stepping up for you, and I promise you I'm here. So, like, reinforcing my commitment, which enabled those people to show up in a new way, to know that there was, that I stepped up. And in my stepping up, it was like creating this vortex of invitation for them to step up in a new way too. And to know that they're not there alone. And that's the thing too that supports us in our expression, is when we don't have to be operating in a vacuum. The truth is, we're never truly operating in a vacuum. By the way, guys, if any of you are writing comments and I'm not responding, it's because I don't see them. So please, please go to Enlightened World Network Facebook page or YouTube channel, put your comments there, and then I can respond. So, Kimberly, I love that you said you're stepping into your life today. So you're stepping up. And what does it look like? What does it look like if each of us were to stepping up and into our lives? What are we called to? What's the next level of expression that we're called to, that we don't know how? It's a little and maybe a lot scary, but we're called into a new level of engagement, whether it's emotional or through action, both. What does it look like to step up and show up? Sometimes that's the most terrifying part, is to just show up in the face of our fear, our self-judgment, our self-blame and shame, and all our stories. To be willing to recognize that we get to put that aside and call ourselves into a higher level of presence, a higher level of being, a higher calling that goes beyond our small self, to step into the larger self. The thing about the larger self, once you start stepping in, is it keeps getting larger. You keep getting to step up. There are these higher orbitals, so to speak, if we want to talk about quantum energy, or more energetic orbitals that we get to step into that are transformative, that shift our beingness. It was really, I had a cool conversation with someone yesterday, and I shared with them a bit about this work and my core connection practice and the work that I do with it. And I start the introductory session to share the work with people. I start it with this question, and I think it's a really powerful question. What in your way of being, if it were to change, would be life altering? So ponder that question. What in your way of being, if it were to change, would be life altering? In other words, what foundational assumptions or foundational patterns of being and behavior, if it were to change, would percolate out into the rest of your life and alter it? And the person's response to that, I thought, was beautiful response. They said, you know what? That's a really scary question. It's a really scary question because we build these structures in our lives. And if what you're talking about is changing that underlying structure, which means that everything built on that structure kind of has to shift and change or come tumbling down. So it's a super disruptive question. And I love that they recognized the power of it and the enormity of it. And the interesting thing is that following that question is the key to dissembling that structure that keeps us locked in and jailed and shackled from being the essence that we truly are. So by dismantling that or reconstructing that structure gives us fuller expression of our authentic selves, right? But it means stepping up because it's freaking terrifying, to say, well, who will I be without that I think I am? So Kimberly says, I must stay in the present moment and not look back, keep moving forward and honor my journey, living life clean and not escaping my emotions and being fully present. It's so wonderful to see you all today. Love, love, love. Kimberly, it's wonderful to have you with us today. Truly, truly. And staying in the present ultimately is the key to everything. Because the past and the future don't exist except in this moment. And let that sink in. The past is what we are carrying from the past into the present. It's what we are pulling into this moment. The future is our imagination of what may be. The past is our interpretation of events that have gone by that we bring into this moment. The future is something that we get to generate or we get to rise to. Or we're creating it in this moment, in this present moment. And actually, this was so cool. This week in the group, because I'm stepping up, I've been looking at ways to be shifting my coaching practice to provide even deeper value to the people that are engaged in it. And to look at what could our group meetings look like if they went to the next level. And so this week we were looking at what are the dynamics of change? Like, what is it that's happening that is working for us? What are these tools of transformation that we're discovering? And one person, I was so thrilled to hear this, one person said, remembering my future. Now that could make your brain go haywire, right? What do you mean remembering my future? Isn't remembering about the past? But the act of remembering is constructing, kind of saying like we're constructing again, reconstructing, remembering. But I love that, remembering my future, like remembering that I get to create the future and assembling it, experiencing it, reveling in it, in our construct, bringing it into this moment. So I love when we get into the quantum dimensions of experience and recognize that past, present, and future are essentially constructs. That we have this notion of linear time, and we've talked about slowing time down, speeding time up, reversing time, stopping time. And we have that capability because time is a construct. It's a function of our consciousness. It doesn't exist without our consciousness. It doesn't exist as something out there beyond us, even though we experience it that way. Time marches on, right? And we see our lives in the context of time and aging and life cycle, and but on some level, all of that resides in the space of consciousness, right? Just fun things to play with in your mind, because what's accessible then? What's accessible when we step into new perceptions? What does it look like in your life to step up? Is it stepping up as a stand for other people? I mean, I got to do that this week. It was such a privilege with a couple of my clients. Rosalind says it would be life-changing if California got rid of the time zone change. You're a riot, Rosalind. That's so funny. So lots of things, in our way of being, if we look at our way of being and look at what would change, like if we're based in fear and we're able to shift that beingness around fear, it will change all our relationships. It'll change our communication. It'll change our perception. If we're steeped in unworthiness and we're able to be worthy, if we're able to be worthy, that changes everything, changes our interactions, changes our experience, changes our relationships, changes our potential or our willingness and ability to express our potential. All those things change. So that's where that question comes from. What in your way of being, if it were to change, would be life altering? If I weren't so angry, if I could forgive certain transgressions that obsess and dominate my thinking and my being. Kimberly says, I feel so much better when I step into the I am alive. I am. Let's see. When I step into the I am alive. I'm not sure how to read this. There's so many ways to read this, Kimberly. I feel so much better when I step in. I'm going to say that. I am alive, alert, enthusiastic. Or I feel so much better when I step into the I am alive, alert, enthusiastic. Two ways of reading that. It changes my mindset and keeps me in a higher vibration. Exactly. When we step in, it's an empowering act. It's an act of volition. It's an act of conscious expression of our engagement, of a commitment, right? And it does have us be in a higher frequency, a higher vibration for sure. So it's Friday, and I invite you to step up and step into the weekend and into the possibilities that have been inviting you to step up and see what's available to you, even if you might be afraid, even if you might have some resistance. see what it looks like to step into who you can be and embrace the possibilities. So Rosalind says, seeing that we have a choice is empowering rather than being at the effect of. Exactly, 100%. And wishing you all a wonderful, wonderful day, a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out the wonderful programming on Enlightened World Network, Enlightened World Living, EWN One with the Earth. And until next time, I'm just so grateful to you guys for your engagement, your willingness to have these conversations and to look more deeply at yourselves and life itself. And until next time.